On today's show, energy cane. Sugar cane. Germany breaks renewable energy outputs. Tesla battery supply wanted. Price parity of EVs. BMW reduces its product line to focus on EVs. We're getting more EVs on our roads, but Toyota reopens the Altona factory. And politicians behaving badly. That and more after this. This is your show on everything happening in Australia and, well, sometimes around the world in our progress towards a cleaner, greener future of renewable technologies. For returning subscribers, thanks for your support, and hey, if you're new, welcome. Okay, first up, sugar looks set to become energy cane, and yes, I know that sugar has been used as a fuel of sort for many years, but this story from the University of Queensland is hopefully different. Their announcement on Monday, 11th of March, details how they are working with global partners to sequence the sugarcane genome as part of a US Joint Genome Institute project. The potential? This could mean that a brand new breed of sugarcane could produce biofuel for baseload energy production, bioplastics, and, well, countless other items for cosmetics, car parts, anything that we currently use in fossil fuels that goes into things. The University of Queensland Professor Robert Henry, who is the Director of Queensland Alliance for Agriculture and Food Innovation, said, "Sugarcane's reinvention as energy cane crop could sustain industry in the face of falling global demand for sugar. The industry must think beyond just producing sugar and also producing electricity, biofuels for transportation, and oils to replace traditional plastics." So why sugarcane? Well, it's fast growing and abundant in biomass, but as exciting as this is, and I still have reservations that to release the energy that's within it, and maybe ignoring the energy that took to transform in the first place, it's going to burn and release some sort of particles into the atmosphere and, well, maybe be not so green. But having said that, it can maybe allow us to change our milk cartons into something that won't actually end up in landfill and last for thousands of years and subsequently pollute the ground. And anything that does that, well, doesn't do that rather, is a good thing. Next, Germany made headlines recently with its energy mix reaching as high as 72.4% last week. This follows on for several weeks of output hovering around about 65% due to unseasonably high winds. Now, what I find remarkable about this is that Germany has almost 30,000 wind turbines with a capacity of 53 gigawatts. And think about this, Germany is like a small country. How can they have that many wind turbines in such a small space? Especially when you compare that size to Australia. Take a look at this. This really cool website, you can actually superimpose one country over another. And I can comfortably fit Germany within, WA, Northern Territory, South Australia, and Queensland. So that begs the question, with Australia's massive coastline and access to lots of wind, how many wind turbines do you think we have? Do me a favour, click on this poll up here and give me your honest answer without looking it up. Yeah, I see you, David. Don't go look at the answer now. No, it's not as easy as you think. And hey, let's have a bit of fun with this one and make it like a competition. Put down below as to what you actually think the potential gigawatts is of our wind farms in Australia. I'll award one lucky viewer a prize of no value in next week's show. Alright, now, before I leave the story, I want to point out that several media organisations picked up on this headline and said things like, well, Germany reaches 83.3% renewable energy, but they're also including nuclear and biomass in that equation. And in my book, that isn't what renewables are about. Rather, to me, to consider to be clean energy, a clean energy source, you can't have on the one hand problems that realistically produce CO2 and nuclear waste. No, it's just shifting things around and creating a whole lot of havoc in other places. So hey, yeah, where do you want me to put that nuclear waste? You just can't go near it for a few thousand years. Yeah, and you get the idea. Next, when Tesla announced its Shanghai Gigafactory, one notable supplier was absent from this significant plant, and that was there'll be no partnership with Panasonic. In case you didn't know, Tesla has used the Japanese battery maker in its cars for years, and they co-share facilities at Tesla's Gigafactory in Nevada. So when you see a Tesla, know that the batteries are effectively, like its fuel tank, are really Panasonic ones. So it was surprising and, well, to me, disheartening to hear that Panasonic won't be joining them in China. Now, I guess it's because of the business rules, that's the Chinese business rules, around foreign entities, and with Tesla getting the green light to build its factory. It surprised many, as they're one of few foreign companies who have ever been allowed to build and own a company in China. So, this week, some media outlets have learnt that Tesla has been in talks with local battery supplier Contemporary Amperx Technology Co. And for the sake of this show, let's just call that cattle. Cattle, yeah. That's only going to get like funnier the more I say it. So anyway, they're a state-owned entity who make batteries for scooters and have supply arrangements with companies like BMW and Volkswagen. Now, we all know that not all batteries are made equally. Indeed, just this week, a story from China noted that 70% of EV buyers in that country have regretted buying an EV due to poor battery performance. Now, I appreciate that Tesla has active battery management hardware and software to keep them, well, in that Goldilocks temperature. But fundamental to the range and performance and lifespan, and whoever Tesla chooses to go with in China will have a vital part to play, and they'll have to do a lot of the catch-up that Panasonic has achieved in years to date. And this is really a massive wildcard for Tesla, no doubt a significant quality that many will be quickly to judge. More specifically, as soon as word gets out that cattle's batteries don't work as well as Panasonic's, Teslas will move away from Tesla, and if they can, they might import one from America. So I'll be watching this very carefully, as I suspect that right now, right-hand drive models will actually be coming out of Shanghai. More on this as it develops. Toyota's decommissioned car plant in Altona, Victoria will hopefully be soon transformed into a renewable hydrogen hub. ARENA, or the Australian Renewable Energy Agency, and Toyota Australia announced on Tuesday the 19th of March the launch of a $7.4 million project to repurpose the Altona North factory to produce hydrogen fuel. Funding is coming from ARENA of $3.1 million and Toyota $4.3 million to kick off Toyota's Hydrogen Center, and they will use like solar PV and battery to produce about 60 kilograms of renewable hydrogen a day through electrolysis, which will eventually find its way to hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. The facility will also include an education center and Victoria's first commercial-scale hydrogen vehicle refueling station. And that will allow the refueling of hydrogen fuel cars. Now, beyond this, I'm encouraged. So long as they actually produce this hydrogen through renewable methods, as it could be a way for like Australia to export renewable energy to other countries, particularly Asia, where demand is actually growing. For instance, South Korea, where they've announced plans to build 100,000 hydrogen vehicles by 2025. And Japan has set a 10-year strategy to become a large-scale importer of renewable hydrogen. Now, time for a new segment that I'm going to call Bites. Alright, this show just keeps on expanding, doesn't it? Okay, sometimes I come across a story or maybe a tweet that's interesting, but well, not so interesting that it deserves a good portion of this show. So I thought, why not do some quick bites of news that I hope will keep you up to date. First up, a quick update on a story detailed a few weeks ago about Carnegie Clean Energy from Western Australia. Those are the guys who are proposing on doing like a wave power project off the coast of WA. Well, not unsurprisingly, following the government's withdrawal of its $14 million grant and one of its founders cashing out all of his shares and, well, basically leaving the company, they've entered voluntary administration with Corda Mentha Restructuring, who will oversee the business and its fully owned subsidiary, Energy Made Clean. So indeed, look, this is sad news and not a good development and puts a dent in our journey to cleaner and greener technology and energies. So hopefully this won't deter investment on renewable tech. Next, Carbuzz reported modeling by Morgan Stanley, the American multinational investment bank and financial service company, to understand when electric cars would actually be on price parity of their internal combustion engine equivalents. The research suggests the cost of batteries will continue to decrease while the cost to make combustion engines will, to make it more efficient, and with those increasing emission standards and regulations, we'll actually see that by 2025, they should reach price parity. Or was it 2024? Yeah, that one. But Nissan's global head of electric vehicles, Nick Thomas, thinks it actually could happen sooner by the early 2020s. He states, they estimate in 2024 in Europe, so when you have European emission regulations, you'll get a crossover where batteries will come down below US $100 per kilowatt hour, and the price of NOx and CO2 of these things, which is driving up the price of petrol and diesel engines, will cross over. He continues, we're actually more confident than that. We see in the products we're developing for the early 2020s, we would expect to see that crossover. There are many different factors involved in that. What that means is that the product that we might be able to launch in the early 2020s will be a beneficiary of that lower price. He's hoping that early 2020 and not mid-2020s becomes a reality because, well, in Australia, we still don't get any government incentives or rebates to help bring down the cost of EVs. And, well, until manufacturers can reduce their prices, widespread adoption with subsequent CO2 decreases won't happen in big numbers. Next, BMW has announced that it's going to reduce its product portfolio complexity. Man, that's really hard to say. So, they're instead going to focus on EV variants. So, this is great. And so, when can we expect more EVs from BMW? 2025. So, it's stated that it's going to invest heavily in electric cars and autonomous vehicles, and it will lose cars like the 3 Series Gran Turismo. One reason cited was a cooling global economy and increased production costs, and among other factors. Now, if you ask me, and what it really means is it's getting harder for us to meet emission standards, and companies like Tesla have a big head start on this. So we're going to consolidate and bring to market more EVs, as that's basically where our customers are going. So we're trying to get them back. So putting sarcastic Chris aside, BMW reiterated that it has plans to dramatically increase its range of electric and electrified vehicles with the goal of offering 12 all-electric models by 2025. By the end of this year, we'll see the Mini Electric. Next year, the Chinese-built BMW iX3, and they're going to debut by 2021. BMW also will add the i4 very soon as well. And one last bite for today. Did you know that it took 5 years to sell the first 1 million electric vehicles, but in 2018 it only took 6 months to do the same thing? That's amazing. I mean, check out this exponential curve that I've made on this fake graph. Pretty amazing, right? Over a period of 5 years, 1 million electric vehicles were sold. Then, in the last 6 months, it more than doubled. So, what happened? Tesla Model 3 raked up 100,000 sales in a single year, with Nissan Leaf and BAIC EC series also about to reach 100,000 each. So it appears that EV sales are finally hitting their stride around the world. In terms of countries that are leading the way, check out this graphic which shows proportion of EV sales against their ICE counterparts by country. Look at Norway with 49%. Go you guys! Now, unfortunately, we're not on this chart because, well, as you know, well, I've said it before, didn't I? We don't really have a really good government that's helping with rebates and incentives, so not surprising there. But what's the deal with Norway? They've amassed like a fortune in oil and gas, and they've used that money to actually create incentives for its citizens to purchase electric vehicles and, well, other social justice programs. As a result, the country is the undisputed leader in EV adoption. In real terms of what you can see on the road, a third of their cars are actually fully electric, and that this percentage is expected to increase in the future. And amazingly, the Norwegian government has even set the ambitious target of requiring all new cars to be zero emission by 2025. Could you imagine that happening in Australia? Yeah, nah. Me neither. Yeah. Alright, that will do it for bites. Now, time for promises. Long as I don't break these promises. Now, this segment of the show is about promises made by our political leaders in the space of supporting technology and initiatives that increase our use of renewables and decrease our impact on the environment. But unfortunately today, folks, I'm going to get on my soapbox and bring you a load of garbage about a politician and his political party. So, are you ready for a little bit of rage? In a press statement, the Australian Conservative Party and its leader, Cory Bernardi, is advocating for the scrapping of all renewable energy subsidies and pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement. Describing other political parties' policies and programs, such as carbon pricing and trading agreements, to be a wrecking ball for the economy, leader Cory Bernardi on the podcast Peacock Politics, why he is firmly of the belief that climate change alarmism is utter nonsense. So let's take a listen to just a few bits of this interview, and I'll provide links to this and more so you can go and listen to yourself and have a read of the policies. Okay, are you ready for a little bit of a giggle? Here we go.
When the facts change, I'll change my mind. Let's go through those. What people believe is entirely up to them, right? So you can't make a rational policy response by what people believe. You mentioned that the temperature has gone up by 1 degree in the last 100 years. That's absolutely probably quite right, but it hasn't changed measurably statistically in the last decade when carbon dioxide has been rising.
Okay, a few things I want to unpack, but first, let me share with you an expression I like to tell people, okay? Without facts, you're just an opinion. So, Mr. Bernardi, when you say things like, you can't make a rational policy response by what people believe, but then you proceed to say in the same sentence, like, yeah, well, global warming may occur, might be a thing. It just makes you look ridiculous. So your hearsay is more right than our published factual scientific data around global temperatures? Okay. Keep going, shovel that hole, and let's dig deeper, shall we?
But I simply do not buy, and I cannot accept, because there is no statistical valid evidence that man's carbon dioxide emissions are driving climate change. And if you want any proof of that, you go, well, you've had some recent hot years, yes, but the temperature in this globe has been much, much hotter decades, millennia past. Man's carbon dioxide wasn't driving that. And so this is a question of cause. And if you say the cause is not valid, well, reducing our quality of life and our standard of living to slay some imaginary dragon, is not going to make any difference to climate change.
Temperature hasn't changed statistically in the last decade, and CO2 has been rising. Well, I think a lot of very smart scientists, smarter than you, would kindly point out just how wrong you are. But he goes on, we can't establish that man's carbon dioxide emissions have anything to do with temperature rises. Let me point to you like exhibits A through Z about, just this and more about how we have. Week in, week out, I bring news of projects that have been delayed due to inclement weather like floods, storms, cyclones, and which have been increasing in the last few decades, which also coincides with rising CO2 levels and rising temperatures and rising waters. And cumulatively, try saying that quickly, they're wrecking our economy. So politicians like this who just don't get it, and they want to remove the targets and goals of the Paris Climate Agreement, it's frustrating. So in an open statement to the Australian Conservative Party, yes, remove the $10 billion in subsidies coal and petrol companies currently get. They don't need them anymore. After all, they've received them for decades of government taxpayer money. Instead, support projects and initiatives and incentivize people to move us all in the right direction to reduce our footprint on this little globe of ours. Okay, enough. Apologies for getting on my soapbox there, but this just is one man's opinion. Opinion, important there. And hopefully people can take a look at this, make their own judgment, and get good, informed choices. All right, so that wraps it for today's show. If you've enjoyed it, hey, once again, please consider giving it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't already, subscribe. It's free. It really supports the channel and, well, it helps me keep going, making these videos like I do 2 to 3 per week. And I've got some very big plans coming very soon. As per usual, if you do nothing, be kind to the environment.